At 7:23, in the evening of the 5th of May 1980, Britain's Special Air Service Regiment became the most famous Special Forces unit in the world. In an operation which lasted just 11 minutes, the SAS took on 6 Arab terrorists. It was a high-risk mission, a test of the regiment's newest role, but it came through with hostages safe and its reputation and morale sky high.
Nobody could beat us. We were the best. We believed wholeheartedly that we were the best, and we knew that we were quite capable of dealing with any scenario that the terrorists thrust upon us.
The SAS was founded and more than proved itself in World War II. But when the conflict ended, the regiment was disbanded. It was reformed as a regular unit of the British Army in the early 1950s to combat communist rebels in Malaya. There, the SAS developed new jungle skills and tactics, including parachuting into the dense canopy to take the enemy by surprise. Further campaigns followed in Oman, Yemen, and Borneo. But in the late 1960s came a new breed of warfare. In 1970, Palestinian terrorists blew up 3 airliners in Jordan, even after their demands had been met. Then, in 1972, at the Munich Olympics, Palestinian terrorists struck again. German police attempted to free the Israeli athletes taken hostage by Black September guerrillas, but it ended in disaster. The terrorists threw grenades into waiting helicopters, killing all the hostages. The morning after Munich, the SAS was ordered to form a counter-terrorism unit. The main focus was hostage rescue. They pioneered their own techniques and developed new skills. The SAS trained as if each exercise was real. Only live ammunition and stun grenades were used, as Robin Horsfall recalls.
You'd do drills daily, 5-6 days a week. The amount of ammunition we used to use was phenomenal. A policeman may get 100 rounds a year to fire off. We used to get 400 rounds a morning.
In the so-called killing house at the regiment's base in Hereford, SAS soldiers went through their drills and trained potential hostages, including the royal family. The troopers' weapon of choice became the Heckler & Koch MP5 9mm submachine gun. High-intensity flashlights aided vision in smoke-filled rooms. Browning high-power 9mm pistols, later Sig Sauers, were also carried. Soldiers wore fire-resistant overalls, gas masks, and personal communications equipment. The SAS developed its own weapons, such as stun grenades and wall-blasting charges, nicknamed flashbangs and Harvey wallbangers. The regiment also developed special techniques for hijacked aircraft. In 1977, 2 SAS men helped free hostages from a hijacked Lufthansa jet at Mogadishu. As the 1970s went on, the terrorist war continued. In Britain, the SAS reconnoitred potential targets. At Hereford, an anti-terrorist unit was always on standby. At 11:25 a.m. on Wednesday, the 30th of April, 1980, the point of all this preparation was proved. 6 Arab gunmen took over the Iranian embassy at number 16 Prince's Gate in Knightsbridge, London, seizing 26 hostages. They were dissidents, opposed to the regime of Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran. They wanted freedom for their homeland. But the entire plot had been set up by an agent of Saddam Hussein, the sworn enemy of the Ayatollahs. Police Constable Trevor Locke of the Diplomatic Protection Group was on duty outside the embassy.
I remember the gun going off, very close. I fell back, I thought I'd been shot. In minutes, I literally mean within minutes, they'd secured the building.
BBC producer Chris Kramer was in the embassy getting a visa.
This little tiny Arabic-looking guy with a keffir on and kind of little bulgy eyes starts to hop around the room with a pistol and with this sort of bright green hand grenade in one hand, which has certainly got my attention.
Armed police and news reporters were soon on the spot, and the area was cleared. Scotland Yard's C-13 anti-terrorist squad moved in next door to the embassy and started gathering information.
What we were concerned about was finding out how serious their intent, isolating them, making sure that we talked to them nicely and hoped that they were going to come out and let us have the hostages and things would calm down. But all the indications in this one, of course, was it was rather more serious than that.
At that very moment, as the police made their initial preparations, 6th Troop of B Squadron SAS was in the killing house at Hereford. At 11:48, their bleepers went. The Kremlin, the SAS Operations Center, had been alerted by a former member of the regiment, now with the Metropolitan Police. It was reported that the SAS was on the road well before official instructions came from the Ministry of Defence. Once in London, B Squadron established a holding area at the Regent's Park Barracks. They started practicing on a mock-up of the embassy's rooms. Negotiations began, giving the SAS men much-needed time. What they were desperate for was detailed intelligence from inside. On the second day, they got a break. Hostage Chris Kramer became ill, and his release was negotiated. PC Trevor Locke knew what was wanted and seized this opportunity.
So I said, OK, Chris, but don't forget, once you get out, tell them on the outside there are 6 of them. They've got 2 machine pistols, they've got 3 Brownings, they've got a snub-nosed 45, they've got hand grenades and spare ammunition. You've got to tell them on the outside. So he said, don't worry, I'll do that. And he started telling them that, or showing out that he's got these pains in his stomach and so on. And he got the reaction he was hoping for. And they were going to throw him out.
Kramer provided the first inside information on which planning could begin. On the same day, under cover of darkness, the assault teams from B Squadron, dressed in plain clothes, were driven in hired vans to the building next door. One of the first things they did was to locate an entry point on the roof of the embassy. Meanwhile, the police and other units were placing microphones and keyhole cameras into the embassy through the walls of the building next door. To stop the terrorists being alerted by the sound of their drilling, the gas board dug up a nearby street, while flight paths into Heathrow Airport were redirected overhead. Director of the SAS at the time was Brigadier Peter de la Billière, who would go on to lead the British forces in the First Gulf War. An SAS veteran, he helped formulate the assault plan. Using blueprints of its layout, the SAS constructed a model of the embassy and located where the terrorists were and where the hostages were being held. Should it have to be used, the SAS plan involved attacking all 6 floors of the building simultaneously, so as to eliminate the terrorist threat as quickly as possible. 2 assault teams would be deployed. Red would take control of the 3 upper floors, blue the lower. After a diversionary explosion on the roof, they would attack from both the front and back. Intelligence had revealed that the windows on the ground and first floors were armored. So at the front, a blue 4-man team would climb onto the balcony and use explosive charges to gain entry. At the same time, also triggered by the diversion on the roof, more blue team members would move out of their standby position at the back of the building to clear the ground floor and the basement. From the rear of the embassy roof, a red 4-man team would abseil onto the balcony on the second floor. From here, they would break directly into the area where the hostages were believed to be held. As the planning progressed, terrorist leader Salim insisted that a radio broadcast be made of the gunmen's demands. He would not release any more hostages until then.
We demand the 3 ambassadors.
The BBC World Service made the broadcast, but the stalemate continued.
Their jobs in negotiating.
The next action by the terrorists would be the trigger to bring in the SAS.
The whole operation peacefully.
The standoff at the Iranian embassy continued, with increasingly tense messages being passed from the terrorists to the police. Steadily, the options seemed to be running out for Police Commissioner David McNee.
The gunmen inside the Iranian embassy must know that it is not within our power to meet all of their demands, whatever our views on the rights and wrongs of their cause may be. I appeal to them to remain calm.
Religious leaders and several Arab ambassadors tried unsuccessfully to intervene. Onlookers were unaware how the tension was building. The siege of the Iranian embassy was now entering its 6th day. Throughout, Police Constable Trevor Locke had been one channel of communication between the terrorists and the police negotiators. That afternoon, as the terrorists' patience ran out, he remembers a sudden and dramatic change in the mood.
They got us to sit facing the wall with their hands behind the back of our heads, and they were clicking these guns, and they were preparing to kill us. And I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck and my arms standing proud with fear, and I thought they were really going to do it.
At 6:50 p.m., events took a deadly turn. The Arab gunmen selected the embassy press officer, Abbas Lavasani, and murdered him. His body was dumped outside the front door. It was the dreadful sign the SAS had been waiting for. Time was up for the terrorists.
We weren't going to go in unless anybody was killed, but as soon as somebody was killed, then it was highly likely that we would. That had come straight from Downing Street, as far as we knew. Margaret Thatcher's policy was we do not negotiate with terrorists, and we'd already been given the nod that if anybody was killed, then she wasn't going to put up with it, that we were going to carry out an assault.
Prime Minister Thatcher didn't hesitate. A handwritten note transferred authority from the police to the SAS under the control of Lieutenant Colonel Michael Rose. To distract the terrorists, police negotiators talked about providing a coach to Heathrow and a plane to the Middle East. At the same time, the SAS prepared for action.
We moved closely up to the building. We get onto the back door, we get onto the roof. The ropes are attached and prepared. Everybody's just about ready to go. The next stage is for everybody to move on to their assault position.
At 7:18 that evening, just half an hour after the execution of the first hostage, television cameras picked up black-clad figures moving onto the roof of the embassy, but did not know who they were. Hidden from general view, the men of Red Team attached themselves to their abseil ropes, which had been pre-positioned. Even at this point, they were already masked with respirators. As the countdown continued, they stepped over the parapet and began to descend. At the front, Blue Team moved to its start point on the balcony. The terrorists were still talking.
Salim, we are listening to some suspicion movement.
There is no suspicious movement.
There's suspicion. Okay.
Salim.
Just a minute, I'll come back again. I'm going to check.
Blue Team raced into the front first-floor room. At the back, Red Team abseiled down to the balcony. But as he descended, one soldier became caught up in his rope.
And I looked up and there was Tom hanging from his rope and he'd got his glove caught in his abseil equipment. The curtains have caught fire from one of the stun grenades that's gone in, and it's caught fire and the flames are starting to sweep up the window, and you could hear him screaming down the radio. And I looked up and I thought, well, there's absolutely nothing I could do. And I was thinking, if somebody doesn't cut him down, he's going to burn to death. And the guys on the roof are looking down over the edge at him, but as he pushes himself away from the flames, he's pushing himself beyond the balcony. So if they cut him at the wrong moment, he's actually going to go over the edge of the balcony and drop another 40 feet down into solid concrete. So they're trying to cut the rope and release him as he's on the inswing, which they succeeded in doing and saving his life.
A first hostage now appeared on the front balcony. Inside, the terrorist leader Salim went for his gun. Trevor Locke acted quickly.
I ran as hard as I could towards him and managed to hit him with my shoulder in the hip and ran him back maybe 8 to 10 feet towards an office door, and I had him and we were facing the door and he was going nowhere.
SAS trooper Tom was first in.
When we got to the door, we went through the normal drill, opened the door a little bit, threw the flashbang in, closed the door, flashbang goes off, and we follow it into the room as fast as you can possibly move.
Trevor, get away! I let go of him and I rolled over to look at the door from where the voice came from. And there he is standing there, this guy who knew me personally as Trevor. And I didn't know him from Adam. And he was dressed in black overalls, mask, had a futuristic looking gun, a balaclava. And as I rolled over, I immediately heard brrr. And I looked back, and there was Salim laying there, absolutely lifeless. And he had a line of bullet holes going at a diagonal across from his eye, across his chest.
I had an MP5 submachine gun and I shot. I fired several rounds in a small burst into him. I believe he would have been dead before he hit the floor.
At the rear, Blue Team was also entering by the ground floor windows. They began to clear all the rooms and the basement. Stun grenades were thrown into rooms and locked doors shattered by automatic fire. SAS trooper Mack pursued a terrorist through the smoke-filled corridors.
Put a smoke grenade in, flashbang, bang, 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 lots of smoke. We go in, can't find him, but we know he's in there. Torches come across, and both the torches sort of hit the guy at the same time. He's lying there, and that was it. And it's bang, bang, couple of rounds, job done.
Blue Team tracked a terrorist to the ambassador's office. Although severely wounded, he hid there in the dark. The post-mortem revealed he had been shot 21 times. Fires started by the flashbangs were now spreading through the embassy building. In the telex room, a terrorist fired on the hostages, killing one and wounding 2 others. He was quickly dealt with by Red Team. hunt for terrorists continued. Some pretended to be captives, but were pointed out by the real hostages. With the building now well on fire, the hostages were thrown unceremoniously down the stairs from one SAS trooper to another.
Hand to hand, boom, 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 down they come, into our hands, whap, 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 out the door, out the door, out the door. And now there's smoke, now there's fire as well. So we want these people out quickly, because now we've got the threat of fire as well. And we want to get ourselves out as quickly as possible.
Remember that we were all wearing respirators and we couldn't identify each other, but the hostages we could see and identify. As he went past, I knew that I had seen him, and I couldn't, for a second or so, remember where I'd seen him from.
Up on the stairs, there was a voice that shouted, "He's the terrorist, he's the terrorist," and we saw somebody stumble down the stairs. And nobody could actually open fire, because if the guys on the stairs had opened fire, the bullets could have gone through the person and hit somebody behind. If we'd opened fire, the same situation. If we'd hit the terrorists where we were, the bullets could have ricocheted into our own men.
And then somebody shouts, "Grenade," and he had a fucking grenade in his hand.
So as he came clear at the bottom of the stairs, there was me and two other guys standing there. And as he came clear, we all fired a burst each, and the guy had 27 holes in him. That was it. There was no drama. His body just went, that was it. He was on the floor, dead.
Outside, the hostages were secured in case any terrorists had survived. Inside, the search went on for the one man the SAS really wanted.
There's gas, there's confusion, and across in the far distance, staggering towards the front door, I could see Trevor Locke. And I ran across and grabbed him and pulled him towards the door. That was great. That felt brilliant, because we knew from that point in time that our number one priority had been achieved. Trevor Locke was out of the building and he was alive.
It was a brilliant success. Only one hostage lost in the assault. One terrorist survived, captured trying to hide amongst the hostages. That evening, Margaret Thatcher and her husband Dennis went to Regent's Park Barracks to thank the SAS assault teams personally.
Both her and her husband were very, very casual, and he was very, very much on our side, and he was quite upset that one of the terrorists had got out, I think, because he told us in no uncertain terms that we had failed in some respects. He had a big grin on his face, but he was, his exact words were, "You let one of the bastards live."
The success of the operation made overnight heroes of the SAS. As the regiment's founder David Stirling remarked after watching it in action on television, this was the first time the SAS had hunted their fox in public. The regiment would have preferred to remain in the shadows, but one fact was clear.
The message to terrorists was, if you come to our country and you kill people, you're not going to go home again.